Well, nice to see you. And nice that you've got a signing into the house, I guess, with 10 days to go with the transfer window. How pleased are you with Dale Stephens joining the pack?
Yeah, he's a player we've liked for a while. We tried for him a number of years ago and it didn't work to get the deal done. We have got the deal done now, obviously. I think he's experienced in different levels of the football pyramid, actually, but he's played in the Premier League over the last few seasons with Brighton and done well. They're going down a different route, so it made him available.
Is it fair to say that he's probably the longest pursuit for a player that you've actually embarked upon in terms of success?
No, we've often been a bit like that. We've had players who we've looked at for a number of years before we managed to get them. Jack Cork was certainly one like that. You know, I'd always admired Corky since he was a young player, and he came to Watford actually on loan. And I'd always thought he was a very good player and a very good character. So I'd liked him for a while. Woody was another one I'd liked for a while. Barnsley, you know. As I've said many times, it's not often that we can cherry pick the players. We often have to be patient until a period comes where maybe they've had a quiet time, or maybe they've, you know, as in Dale's situation, where a club have decided to go a different way and they become available. So therefore we have to keep our ear to the ground and we have to watch the market, see how it moves, and also work within the financial guidance that I get. So that was part of it. But he's a good player and I think he'll fit in well here.
And I guess the other thing in common with the kind of names you've mentioned, it's a low risk signing in the sense you know what you're getting and there's no kind of settling in period.
Well, he's from the north, so he's a Bolton lad, so he understands about the north as well and the cultural difference, you know, especially having been down at Brighton for a number of seasons. But yeah, I think he'll get what it's about here. He'll know our players, or most of them. He'll have played against them a number of times, so I think he'll fit in really well and quite effectively and quite quickly, we hope. So I think he will.
And when it comes to progress for other signings, how are you getting on? I mean, I'll throw Harry Wilson at you, but I know I'll get back, which is a very straight bat. But I mean, how are you going in terms of bringing out?
It's not about straight bat. It's just I try and limit information on situations that are not real until they are real. I mentioned about Dale Stephens after the Millwall game because I knew that it was more or less done. It was, you know, I's and T's dotted and crossed. So once that was done, and that was actively happening while the game was going on. So therefore, I got the news afterwards. It was virtually done. Then I speak openly about the players, but when they're all rumours, then I tend not to, because I just don't think I want to be speaking about other people's players until they become part of us.
But in terms of optimism of more bodies, are you more optimistic than you were in the last time we spoke to you?
No, not really. I think there's a number of things we're considering, but it still takes that magic checkbook to get them done. So I'll just wait and see what happens.
But the magic checkbook is at least working. It's at least open, because otherwise Dale Stephens wouldn't be here, would he?
Yeah, we got that. We got a bag of balls as well. So that was good, and some cones. And I think we've got some bibs coming next week.
In terms of injuries, which is more kind of pressing, I think you've got 8 players out now with Jay added to that kind of list. Does that mean that Dale comes in, or does that mean that you're stretched even further with a game like Southampton?
Well, the good thing is he's been active in pre-season. He's had a few days where he's not done too much, but we tested him yesterday. He tested well, so we think he's got a good base fitness. So I'd certainly consider that he could go into the side, or a version of it in the squad, definitely. So that's helpful. Yeah, I'm waiting on news on J-Rod, or further news on J-Rod, but I'll be amazed if he's fit for Saturday. There's a chance, but I doubt it. So yeah, I mean, look, we are stretched. It's the good news, if you like, is that Barnsley has got another game, so therefore he's closer to fitness and he looks nice and bright in training, and he's looking back somewhere close to being right. Ben Mee's making progress, so there are some signs. Johan's, like I say, he's making progress now. It's still, it's not going to be days, but it's not going to be as long as we first thought, we don't think. I'm certainly hopeful in the next week we've got a chance with some of them players. If not, then I think after the international break, then I'd like to think they've all got a chance, them guys are being fit. So there is that side of it. It is looking slightly more positive, but it is very unhelpful when we keep losing players. And obviously we've lost J-Rod and I'm waiting on news for how long.
But I mean, injuries give opportunities to other players. Are you seeing Josh Brownhill kind of settling in and blossoming perhaps sooner than he would have done without the opportunities the injuries have presented?
Yeah, kind of. I mean, after the lockdown period, I think, people, when we were on 39 points when we came out of that, you aren't done, but statistically, you've got every chance from that moment onwards. And then once we got our first win again, it was always in our mind to get Josh Brownhill playing in that last period of games. But obviously he got thrown in against Man City and never came out and did very, very well in two different positions. I think he continues to mature into the group. I think he continues to mature as a player. I think he's a very good player. He's showing that. He's been excellent in the last couple of games. So it bodes well for him. And I think, to be fair to him, I think the competitive edge in a group that I talk around, it's an important factor. And, with Dale Stephens now, with Corky, he's not fit at the moment, but he'll get fit at some point. West, he's been on real good form. All of a sudden there's that competitive element. And we want that. We want that in-house competitive thing going on, as well as the opposition who you're playing, of course. So I think he's been thriving off that. And he's certainly been laying down a marker to say, look, I'm here, I want to play. And that's how he's been training. That's how he's been playing.
You mentioned the international break. Do you think the consistency of your goalkeeper, Nick Pope, perhaps puts him top of the pecking order when it comes to England in a couple of weeks?
Well, I'm not here to pick teams for Gareth, that's for sure. But I think he's a very, very good goalkeeper. I think he continues to improve as well. In his presence in the goal physically, we know he's a big guy. But the way he's handling himself, his voice, the way he's aggressive from his line and dealing with things, reading the play from a distance, I think he continues to improve. I'll be interested to see if Tarky's fit, and then can he get a squeeze in there? Because I was very surprised he wasn't in the last group, but we'll see. Dwight McNeil, I was even more surprised, so we'll see about him as well. But going back to Pope, he's a fine goalkeeper, but it's not my decision, whether he plays or not. Oh, not for England, that's for sure.
Just on Tarkowski, has that all gone quiet? Are you now preparing for the rest of the season to have him with you, rather than be worrying about?
I've not been preparing to have him with us. I've said all along that, in my opinion, he'll be with us. That if any other decision will be taken out of my hands if it goes, to a level that the chairman deems appropriate. But I'm not thinking that. I don't think it will do. I think he'll be here, and he's a very good player, and he'll get fit, and he'll enjoy his time continuing to play for us, I'm sure.
At the start of things this season, we talked about the home and away record being very similar, and that being almost a testament to the fact that the guys have settled into playing Premier League football over 5 seasons. But if you look at it, are you a manager that says, look, I want the record at home to be better than it was last season? I think it was 7 or 8 wins rather than... No. We take wins wherever we can get them from. We felt after the first season back up, we would have to improve our away form. But some of that comes with experience. It's not just how you're putting the team out there. As a manager and coaches, sometimes it's the experience they gather from playing in the Premier League. That was shown in the next season, and a big season it was. And the next one was a tough start, but a strong finish. I think the players continue to mentally mature, not just the physical side of the game or the understanding of the Premier League, but that mental maturation of learning from what actually happens, because the game's the best teacher. We as coaches and managers, we can all display knowledge and tell the players what we think and give them tactical guidance and understanding, but the game's the best teacher. The cleverest players learn from the game, and I think my players here learn from the game and how we operate against any given opposition. So I think they continue to do that. It's an important factor for me, season on season, to keep that consistent level of performance, but also to keep that consistent level of learning, whether it's us trying to educate from as coaches, but also that self-learning that comes from playing and working it out. Just a final point for me. You've come through and played and managed at all levels. Are you worried that with no fans in the foreseeable future, we are going to see the smaller clubs go bump without some sort of help from somewhere?
Yeah, someone's asked me that the other day, and I made a comment that seems to have gathered a little bit of pace about different industries should be there for. If the Premier League, it's sort of a lot of weight goes on the Premier League, like it should be answering all these problems. I wasn't suggesting that it couldn't play its part. I was merely suggesting that you can't just look at football and say, well, they should be looking after all the small clubs, because that should be every industry. Then you can't just apply it to football. Amazon, I believe, are making unbelievable amounts of profit. Well, do they look after all the smaller distribution networks? I don't know. I don't know whether they do or they don't, by the way. But what I'm suggesting is there's massive companies out there, not just Premier League football clubs, because they're still companies, don't forget. Now, if we can play our part and the powers that be decide some way that can happen, then fair enough, of course. But all I was suggesting was there's a lot of weight put on Premier League football and Premier League football clubs, and there was through the lockdown. Are they doing this? Are they doing that? Well, you've got to share that weight around top industries of all different kinds, and at least be realistic with it and say, right, okay, well, all these top market leaders in all their fields, therefore, should be protecting and looking after businesses that are maybe finding it tougher or not maybe as elite as some of them companies are. Well, that's got to go across the board. It can't just be Premier League football. I don't think. I think it's got to go across the whole thinking.
But without any sort of funding from anywhere, not necessarily the Premier League, but if it comes from government, are we going to see these smaller clubs really struggle and maybe go out of business? Well,
I hope not. I mean, I had a fantastic time at varying clubs, from different levels in my career, and I enjoyed them all in one way or another. And they've become very important. You've got to remember when the sort of the power of the media went into football and the finances, there was a time when they thought lower league and small clubs and would disappear. That hasn't happened. People do look after their local clubs, and that's amazing from fans to do that. Now, if they can find a way, the government can find a way of helping football, then I think it is important. They're important things to the community. We all hope that this COVID situation gets some form of, we can get a stranglehold on it through medicine and stuff like that. If that happens and people can start coming back into the clubs, then I think it is an important part of communities. So if we can make sure somehow these clubs can see through this period, then I think the people will come and support them when they can, of course, and take it forwards. But there will be a bit in the middle where someone's got to support them. If it's the government, if the pyramid of football can help, if business can help, if local businesses can help, then that's fantastic. But I think it applies to all businesses, not just football.
Hi, Sean. Yeah, Katie here from PLP. I just want to pick up on that point about fans, because earlier this week we heard that fans are not likely to be able to come back into stadiums until March at the earliest, which means that Turf Moor won't have had fans for around a year. Just explain how different that feeling is not walking out in front of a crowd at Turf Moor.
Yeah, it definitely, there is a knock-on effect of it. It's even within yourself, it does feel peculiar, even though we've had a number of games now through the back of the lockdown last season. There is an oddness to it, there's a quirk to it, but on the pitch, I think the players have done well. I think a lot of the games have been a good tempo. There's been an edge to it. There's been a definite that winning feeling that people, both teams are fighting for. But I just think it's just, we've got to do it, of course. But it does feel different. There's no two ways about it, and we've seen the stats change slightly with away wins and home wins and all that kind of thing. So there must be something that reacts in your own person, if you like, to adapt to a crowd, and now it gives you a lift. The other side of it, of course, some players find it tough in front of a crowd. It's some rise from it and need that energy. Some find it tough, and it might be a case where some are actually kind of more balanced when the crowd isn't there. So I think in a mixture across the board, I still think it's too early to tell how the crowd affects a group of players when they're performing. But my feel on it is it just takes away that edge. Fans are massively important in football and all sports, of course, but in football, very, very important. But of course, we know the bigger picture is more important. So therefore, we've got to do what we've got to do.
So what's the mood like in the camp at the moment, especially bearing in mind we're hearing a rise in coronavirus cases and matches like Tottenham v Leyton Orient being cancelled with your recording 17 positive COVID tests? How are you and the club managing the players in the situation at the moment?
Well, I don't think the players are overly worried for themselves. I mean, as to my knowledge, the people who have tested in the Premier League have all been asymptomatic or minimal symptoms. So I don't think they're worried in that sense. But I mean, we follow all the rules, we follow all the guidelines. We encourage our players to follow as many guidelines as they can at home in their private lives. We can't cover everything, but we encourage that. Equally, though, we encourage them. They've got to live their lives as well outside of what we do here. Everyone's searching for the answer. We're just trying to play our part in doing our bit to help people find the answer, by doing what we can. We certainly have no control over the virus, that's for sure. All the rules, they're beyond our, sort of world, so we just adapt to them. And I think our players have done a good job, and I think football at large is doing a good job of it. Everyone's trying to do their bit. We're still distancing, we're still travelling in different ways, we're still doing all the things that we can do to play our part.
And just finally, looking ahead to the match this weekend, Burnley are unbeaten in their last 7 Premier League meetings with Southampton. How are you approaching the game, especially knowing the threat Danny Ings poses up front?
Yeah, well, it won't be just about Ingsy. They're a good side. They proved that, especially after lockdown. They had a very strong finish. They had a tough start last season, but a strong finish. Good group. They've got an energy to them. They get the ball forward quickly. They can ask questions. Ingsy has had a great season last season for sure, and we know he is a very good player. But they've got more than just Ingsy. They're a Premier League outfit, and they have been for a number of years. So I think we've got to remember that. We've got to remember that they are a team and it's not just about one player. But of course, you've got to be sharp, you've got to be tuned in. But that goes across the board in the Premier League. It's not just about one player on any team. You've got to be tuned into the whole performance. So I think that's what we'll be looking to do.
Sean, just touching on the no crowds thing, if you got a bit more of a vested interest with your son being at Northampton, you really get a sense of how much of a struggle it is with no fans.
Yeah, I don't think it's just about my son being involved at Northampton. I think my knowledge of the game across the board, having played at so many clubs down the years, just gives me a little bit more of an insight, of how important them clubs are to their communities, and likewise the communities to the clubs. But like I said, I think the debate on what's going on is it's a worldwide thing. So, there isn't the exact answer, I don't think. There isn't the perfect answer. I think we're just all searching for the best of the situation. I think all clubs across football will be looking for the best of the situation. So if every club can find a way, and there is help and guidance along the way from whether it be government or the pyramid of football, we'll wait and see. And I know fans have even played their part, or trying to, with the idea of paying for their seats and the like. They're trying to do their bit. But it's not easy times. It's not just about football. It's not easy times for loads of people out there.
Back on the pitch, good cup win midweek, and good to bounce back from the weekend.
Yeah, I wasn't disappointed at the weekend, so I don't think it's bounced back. I think we actually gave a really good performance at Leicester. We were a bit, a couple of sloppy moments cost us in the end, but we created enough, that's for sure. We created enough chances, enough high quality chances, and then certainly a good second half performance at Millwall. I thought they were the better side first half, but I thought second half we showed a bit more of our pedigree and what we should be delivering, and I thought in the end we were worthy of winning that game, and some good young players who played for us and did very well.
Yeah, have they impressed enough to maybe have a bit of a sniff for this weekend?
Well, they've still got a long way to go. Jimmy Dunn's slightly in advance of the others because he's had a couple of loan spells, so that's a bit different. Josh Benson had a loan spell last season, Glenn had a loan spell, but Bobby has not had that at all, and he's just been with us and he did very well, I thought. So yeah, they're good players. It's a big step going into the Premier League, but they're earning the right to at least be considered around the squad, that's for sure, and possible starts depending. We've got so many injuries, that does give them more of a chance, and that is, the alter side to the injury situation. We don't want injuries, by the way, but if you do get them, it does allow these doors to open for some of these young players, and even if they're on the bench, it gives them a good experience of what the reality is. They've been with us for a long time now because of the injury situation. They've been training with us all the time, and they're definitely improving. I can see it from them on the work they do on the training pitch. But of course, the final bit of measure, if you like, is when a real game comes along, and I thought they did very, very well down at Millwall the other day.
Yeah, you've been pleased with their progress. Do you think they'll be able to make that step up to become regular Premier League players?
Oh, we'll see, because you get a feeling for players, and you get a feeling when they're about right. I think they've still got a bit of a way to go when we're going, okay, look, we almost know you're going to deliver. But some players, don't forget, they need to be out there, and once they're out there, some just take it on. It's just like a natural response, and some find it difficult. I think the no fans thing might play a little bit into their favour, in a way, these young players, because there's not that same demand in a stadium. On the other hand, as I mentioned earlier, some players need that demand, they need that edge from the fans. So that self-motivation is different when there's fans in the stadium sometimes. So I think for a young player at the moment, it's that mixed bag of getting a chance, concentrating and focusing on your game. And I think as long as they do that, they've got a chance regardless of whether we've got fans in the stadium or not. If they concentrate and focus on their game, they deliver a performance, it can only build experience, but also build belief in what they do. Going
back to the injuries, Jay Rodriguez, how is he? Will he be available this weekend? Same with James Tarkowski?
I'm waiting on news on Jay Rod. Obviously, late night travelling back. So I'll get more news. We're having an afternoon session today, so I'll get more news when I go over. Tarky, I'll wait on more news on him. It's not serious, but it's still inflamed his toe, so if that settles down, he's got a chance.
Able to bring in Dale Stephens as well this week, a player you've chased for a while. What will he bring to the club?
Yeah, we haven't chased him for a while in the sense of the last couple of seasons, but we did do a few seasons ago when we tried to sign him, and that didn't happen. But, it's another one, like I say, sometimes we have to keep our ear to the ground and watch the shifting sands of the market. And so that happened. We got a sniff on the fact that he might become available, Brighton maybe looking down a different road or whatever. So therefore, we've activated on that.
Southampton this weekend, a couple of defeats already. Has that surprised you from last season, the way you started?
Well, I mean, the beginning of a season, no fans, all the stuff that we're talking around, it kind of, everyone's waiting to see how that affects groups. But the main thing for us is to register there's still a good Premier League outfit. So we know about the Premier League and we know you have to be switched on to every game. You certainly, whether teams are winning or losing, there's no gimmies in the Premier League. So we will have to be right and ready to play.
Morning, Sean.
Morning.
Sean, we've spoken about James Tarkowski a lot over the last few weeks. It's good to hear that the injury's progressing well. I know you're not affected at all about any of the transfer speculation, but have you noticed a change in him at all? Is it something that has affected him?
No, not overly. I mean, I don't think it's helpful, if in the sense that too much noise about it, but he'll be used to it. He's not the first player who's had that outside noise about their futures, so he'll know all about that. We've certainly had lots of links with lots of clubs down the last few years with players, and him included, by the way. Only last season there was talk of it, last pre-season, if you like. So I don't think it's new ground for him, but he's a top pro. He's a very level-headed guy, and I think once his injury's right, he'll get on with things, as he always does.
You haven't lost to Southampton since 2016, and bearing in mind the core of your side has remained quite constant in the last 4 years, how much confidence does that give you and the squad heading into this game?
Yeah, it's always a strange thing, actually. We get that a lot, like the team's not changed. I think if you look back at that squad and you look at this squad, I think you'll realise it has changed quite a lot, actually. But that aside, then I think the honest view of it is, the stats of the past, they don't actually mean anything for the future. So, I talk to the players actually a lot about that. What's gone in the past doesn't guarantee the future. So we don't look at what's in the past in that respect on any given team. What we do remind the players of what's going to be needed to go and beat a team like Southampton again. So we will be aligning them with that. We want that knowledge to go onto the pitch, and we want it to be a performance that can win. So we actually, we certainly don't make the players like talking about the past, because it's no benefit for the next game. So we'll be focusing on the actual challenge of the performance.
Ralph Hasenhüttl was saying to us yesterday that he's not actually been that surprised by the level of performance from his side so far, considering the pre-season that all these teams have had. Is that the way you feel about Burnley as well? Do you think it will take a couple of weeks, maybe after the international break, for us to see Burnley and other clubs at their peak?
I think the beginning of the season, any season, is always indifferent, or often indifferent. You see odd results sometimes, at the beginning of a season. So I don't think that's a major surprise. Look, the pre-season's been what it is. We've all been similar. We've all had to do what we've had to do. I think player sharpness does come from playing more regularly against the sort of top opposition that is formed by the Premier League. So I think that does bring player sharpness, but I think we're all in the same boat. So I think players will get fitter and sharper. In our case, actually, it's not so much the fitness level, it's more the injuries getting fit. That will make a difference to us. But no, I've been quite happy with the fitness and the sharpness of the players. Now it's about taking on the next challenge and taking it in to win games.
And just finally from me, there have been reports in the last few days about a potential takeover. Do you know anything about that at all? And how much of a boost would that be if investors came in and they wanted to spend money, especially on the playing squad?
Yeah, I mean, that's not my domain. That's for the chairman, that's for the board, they're the decision makers. If and when something like that happens, I have no knowledge of whether it is happening or not, other than what you've told us through the media.
Just on Josh Brownhill and obviously Dale Stephens as well, given that Josh has sort of come in and adapted really well in that central midfield role, but also given the arrival of Dale and the injuries you've got in that area, is there a bit of a balance between potentially having to move Josh away from a position where he's been performing well to play on the right if needed to get the four natural midfielders in there?
Well, he's done that for us after the lockdown when he came into the side, and he did very well at it. So we know he can do that. He's got a great honesty to him, Josh, and his work ethic too. So, if we have to use him elsewhere in the team, I'm sure he'll adapt to that without even a question. That's the type of character he is. So we'll wait and see with that one. But it's just, we've got to get bodies in. We know that, but not just through transfers though. We've got to get bodies fit. Because when we've got everyone fit, then it looks a bit more balanced. We're not as many short then, but at the minute it just looks even more stretched because we haven't got bodies in. But equally looking after our players in here, getting contracts tied down quickly, getting players, making sure they're here, making sure all our top players are here. Things like that are important. It's not just bringing players from the outside in. That is helpful, of course, when we are stretched, and it's also helpful because we do work with a very low number in our squad. So Do we want to bring a player in or two? Yes, we still do. But if we can get players fit, that's as important as anything at the moment.
You mentioned the contracts there, and keeping those sort of key senior players has been a key theme for you and the club since you came in, really. Are you still sort of hopeful and undergoing talks with the likes of Westwood and Jack Cork and that sort of key core players to...
Yeah. We try and make sure that we're on top of the contract situation. The chairman and the board know the contract situation quite obviously. They know my recommendations as well. So we'll wait and see what happens with that. But I think that's an important factor. You know, keeping our top players, keeping the good players here, keeping the young players here as well who are developing, because we do believe in what we do here. It's not just about players coming from the outside in. Of course, that is something that we still want to flex, but it's important to keep our group together, make sure they're looked after and make sure they're under contract here, I feel.
And just lastly for me, we've spoken plenty in recent weeks and months and probably years about the nature of the market and the prices being quoted for players now. And you referenced the magic checkbook there earlier on. With that in mind, do you sort of feel like you'll have a 10, 15, 20 million pounds to spend on one individual should the need arise and the stars align for you to bring a player in at that price?
No, we never work like that. It's just a case of, look, this is the player that we think is appropriate. Can we do it? So it's not really relevant, the numbers. And the magic checkbook, maybe I'd have to say the possibly magic checkbook. Maybe I have to check my words on that one. But I'm only joshing, by the way, in case anyone wants to try and make another story about it. But yeah, we'll see. We'll see if the magic checkbook is open.